What's going on, everybody? It's Max the Catfish, and today, Update 4 was released to the experimental branch of Satisfactory. I'm not even going to do an introduction. We're just going to jump straight into the patch notes, take a look at what some of these things look like in the game, and show you some of the stuff that Coffee Stain has kept hidden from us for months and months. You're going to love it. Patch notes first. If you saw the Update 4 release video, I gotta say, it's probably their best video of all time. Really funny. I was laughing the entire way through. There was some stuff in there and in Update 4 that I did not expect. Right off the bat, first patch note on this list, drone and the drone port. This is really cool. You can create drones to move resources across the map in tier 7 and 8. So what we kind of originally assumed was there was going to be a teleporter, because there was kind of a hint at a teleporter building in a build way back before Update 3. Turns out they're not going to do that. Instead, they're going to do drones and drone port. I'm very curious how this is going to work. We're really interested to get an eye on this and see what that's like. Super cool. Next, we've got lights, which I don't think anyone expected, but we know that everybody's been asking for ages. So there's they said there were 3 different types of lights. There's actually 4. A ceiling light that hangs from the ceiling, a flood light tower, which just kind of like, illuminates a much larger area, a wall floodlight, and a street light that you can place to make your base look like it's a little street, which really is freaking exciting. We had started building a little bit of a city-style base on stream the other day, and I'm just thinking about now how we could turn that into feeling even more like a city using the streetlights. It's so cool. You unlock these inside of the Awesome Shop. You can unlock them for coupons and then get access to build them around your base, which is really freaking awesome. There's also a panel that you can connect to lights, and that can control how bright they are and what color they are. Very curious to see what effect this has on performance, because this has kind of been the reason why Coffee Stain hasn't really given us lights yet. They were a little bit worried about the effect that it would have on performance. Very curious to see exactly how that shakes out. Next up in the list, we've got the hover pack, which is freaking awesome. I finally have a way of flying around my base and hovering while building things without having to use a mod. So previously I was using a fly mod to do this. Now with the hover pack, I love that it's being built into the game. And if I remember correctly, it's going to require batteries to power it, which gives batteries further uses in the game. And one of the overarching kind of design principles, whether they stated it or not, was to give purpose to some of these materials that you didn't really use. I don't remember using batteries back in Update 3 almost at all. And now they've got purposes in so many different places, which is awesome. Same thing with nuclear as well, where there's a use for the nuclear, I think they said the nuclear fuel cells to create, was it nuclear pasta, I think is what they said in the video, something along those lines. Very curious about that. That might be lower in the notes here. We've got the zip line as well, which I talked about in my what all is coming in Update 4. So if you want a little bit more of an in-depth kind of query about what these things might be, go check out that video. But super excited for this. Looks like it actually gives you acceleration in the horizontal perspective as well. So you don't have to do sort of the physics work like you did with hypertubes, right? It looks like you can kind of just jump on and it's going to accelerate you horizontally, which is freaking awesome. I'm really excited for that. We knew a little bit about the blender already and how that's going to be used, and a little bit about the resource well extractors and pressurizers as well. But we finally got a name for the Update 4 building, the secret building they've been hiding from us, and that is the particle accelerator, which is going to be used in that process to turn nuclear waste into plutonium and use that plutonium as a new power source, which is really cool. Fantastic. Really excited about that. The building looks freaking awesome. It looks like a roller coaster kind of deal, which is really neat. Super psyched for that. And of course, the power storage and the power switch, which we saw coming already. Now, there was some mention about how the power accelerator was going to use maybe a lot of power drain. So as it's producing its resources, it's going to use more intensive power. The power requirement's going to increase, which means it is going to kind of have this symbiotic relationship with the power storage, which is really cool to see that relationship between those two buildings as well. Super excited for that. That's going to be really cool. Excited to see what that plutonium process from beginning to end really is. We talked about nitrogen gas being added to the game and the resource wells. We're going to do a little bit of exploration and see where those wells are, where they were placed. I assume that we're going to be able to search for them in the same way that you can search for resources like other resource nodes like coal and iron and that kind of stuff. We'll see in the game. And a bunch of new parts. Looking through this list, we knew about most of these. The cooling system, modular frame, non-fissile uranium. So we're getting some names for some of the things that that we had kind of gotten an idea of. Copper dust is new. Pressure conversion cube is new. Hadn't heard about that yet. I thought there was going to be one in here. Maybe they just hinted at it in the video. This nuclear pasta, or that was a joke. Am I getting like totally memed on right now? I legitimately actually don't know. Oh, man, if I just scroll down here, it is nuclear pasta. It's in the 4 new project parts that you're going to be building for the space elevator. So that's pretty cool. And now a bunch of changes. So let's read into this because some of these were hinted at and some of these weren't exactly. So they rebalanced the production lines containing bauxite and aluminum, however it's pronounced, which includes alternate recipes. So making those all-clad aluminum sheets was a big endeavor. Our old factory probably doesn't work anymore creating those sheets, so we're gonna have to take a look at that and kind of rework how we do it. Very curious about that. They rebalanced nuclear as well, which I think makes sense, of course, because they're adding the plutonium process in there. And so some of these like uranium pellets were reworked and removed to change some of the process there. They also changed the buildings that kind of add up to that nuclear process. All conveyor-fed generators now always produce full capacity rather than regulating their power. So this is what we talked about, where a coal power plant is going to constantly consume coal and burn coal. And either you use the power, either in a production process or storing that inside of a power supply, or you lose it and it's gone. So you're going to have to take a look at some of your power production and see whether you actually have enough production to support your processes now that all of your miners and your water, what are they called? Water pumps? All of your water pumps are running constantly, that you have the power to support those as well. Geothermal generators produce a fluctuating amount of power. We talked about that in our last video, so that was kind of explained to us before. They upped the stack sizes for commonly used items, which I assume, what would that be? Like cable and stuff like that, maybe? I'm not sure. Curious about exactly which items they're referencing there. Rebalance the progression of some inventory slot increases, which is fantastic. I think that's really great. I'm assuming they're going to make those a little bit easier to get because the inventory was a little bit limiting in terms of getting those slots, but I don't know. We're going to have to take a look at that. We might not even be able to see that if we play our existing save because we have most of those unlocked already. Decreased fuel burn rate in fuel generator from 15 per minute to 12 per minute, which is actually kind of cool. So your fuel generators are going to burn less fuel per minute, which means you can support, oh God, I'm just thinking about our, 470 fuel generators? That's going to be a nightmare. We might have to build more. We'll have to take a look and see what that means. But now that they're all working kind of at 100% capacity, that might mean that we're okay and it balances out. We're going to have to see exactly what that implies. Created several new crash sites so that there are enough hard drives for the additional alternate recipes, which is fantastic. There were more crash sites in the game than alternate recipes back before Update 4. So it'll be curious to see whether that's still the case or whether the number is now even with the number of alternate recipes in the game. Very curious to see what that is as well. Changed this Tier 7 progression to work with the new Tier 8 content. So they did some reworking of Tier 7 progression. What they mentioned on the live stream is if you've unlocked Tier 7 in your game, you will also have Tier 8 unlocked. But what I noticed when I logged into the experimental branch really quick to kind of scope out what some of these changes look like, I noticed that some of your unlocks may be now unlocked. Locked, they'll be locked, and you have to unlock them again. That includes nuclear power because it's been moved from tier 7 into tier 8. And I think there may be some other reworks in there as well. Added a global MAM research completion sound, so that's quite nice when your MAM is done researching. You don't have to keep in the back of your mind, okay, it's going to run 10 minutes for this hard drive or whatever it is. The sound is going to play globally so that you can go back to your MAM and start a new research, or just place a new MAM down wherever you're standing and work on the next research that you have from your inventory. Optimize and replace some particle systems and VFX. They praise Simon. I got to say, this is likely to do with lights. Probably something along those lines. The visual effects probably play some kind of role in supporting lights in the game as well. Implemented new conveyor item renderer, which is really interesting. To have many conveyor items moving, work in progress, have some positive effects depending on your system. I think they're trying to make this a little bit more efficient so that it doesn't take up so much visual processing and computer processing power, so that you could support larger factories, which would be huge. That'd be really great, especially for people who are in the late game and are seeing that slowdown of their factory kind of kicking in. Now, it's the quality of life area that I'm very interested in. So implemented proper snapping functionality for water extractors. This is like, screw drones, screw lights, screw all of that. This is like the one thing that they could have added, and I think everybody would have just been over the moon about. Water extractors notoriously were frustrating to place. And so if you used a tool like area actions to place them down, you could actually get them centered and snapped, in a way that felt like it made sense. Curious to see how water extractors now snap to something like a foundation, if they do, or if they just snap to themselves and you can place them in a way that tiles them nicely. Would be kind of cool. Added ability to copy and paste settings in buildings, such as selected recipes and overclocking. So there's another reason where we may not have to use area actions except for mass placement of foundations and walls and stuff like that. Now you can copy and paste the settings from one building to another. Love it, love it, love it. Added a quick switch radial menu to the build menu that can be accessed by pressing E to switch between similar buildings, like different power poles. So this is great. If you are placing a power pole down on the ground, you are going to be able to hold the E key and select which tier of power pole you want to place, which would be huge. That'd be really, really, really cool. So now you don't have to, on your hotbar, have a tier 1, a tier 2, and a tier 3 power pole on the hotbar. You can only have a single one of those, and then use the E key to toggle between them, which would be really great if that's how that works. We're going to find out. Added a directional arrow to the hypertube entrance hologram. So this was really frustrating when you were placing down the hypertube entrances. Sometimes you would place them backwards, just depending on how they were snapping to an object. So that's great. And then the quick search now closes when hitting enter in an empty search field. That's just like typical quality of life kind of update, small stuff like this that adds up to a better experience. Lots of networking stuff. I'm not going to waste your time with it. There in every update, there's going to be updates and changes to networking. So we're just going to skip over it. And then the UI stuff, most of this will probably just slam through, and then we'll see whether we notice it inside of the game. So updated the style info of all product UIs, updated some multi-output production UIs. A lot of this is like, yeah, okay. Unless you were really looking for a specific change, you won't notice it. Added the maximum consumption and power storage information to the power graph. So there's some toggleable power graph options that you have now to be able to see what is my consumption, what is my my storage, what is my amount created, and all of that stuff. So this is more information for us to have and to access, which is pretty cool. Overhauled the attention ping at the alt left button, so it indicates when it's off screen. Just like little bits and bobs here. There's going to be some changes to the Awesome Shop UI, which we hinted at and were kind of teased to us during some of the Coffee Stain. Sounds tasty. Coffee Stain video teasers for Update 4. So that's pretty neat. Some Awesome Shop updates and removal of errors and blah, blah, blah. Most of this stuff, I'm trying not to like too much gloss over it, because there's always something in here that's like, oh my God, that's amazing. But I don't think I see it. Move the warning errors in the pipeline pump UI to the center. Recipe scroll box, added scrolling support with the arrow keys to the chat window. So if you play multiplayer, there's some nice UI changes in here that you'll probably like. Right click on inventory slots and buildings in the build menu has the option to open the appropriate codex page. Sure. This is the linking to the codex. So you can find out more information about it, which is pretty neat. Reshot the liquid biofuel icon to look less like oil and little bits and bobs like that. Add an option for high contrast build in the dismantle mode, which places a semi-opaque backdrop behind the text. Just things to make the UI feel a little bit nicer. Overclocking no longer rounds to the nearest whole percent and now supports math formulas when entering a number. Overclocking now supports math formulas when entering a number, similar to the option in the quick search. So if you've seen our quick search video where I show you a little bit about how to use the calculator that's built into Satisfactory, you can now enter a math formula when you overclock. I'm kind of curious about, does the math formula stay as the number of the overclock percentage, or can you change certain variables in that formula so you can adjust the overclocking? Very curious. That's actually kind of cool. I kind of like that change because now instead of having to do the calculation either in the quick search, remember the number and plug it into the machine, you could in theory just update the number inside the machine using whatever calculation you have come up with, which is pretty cool. And then some tooltips on inventory slots that show which building the part or the recipe is produced in. Okay, yeah, pretty neat. Pretty neat. Scrolling down a little bit further, we tweaked sounds on all vehicles, improved sounds for different production cycles on the constructor and manufacturer. And I got to say, if you haven't done this already, give this a try. There's a building, the refinery does this really well. If you stand on one side of the refinery and just listen to it, it makes a different sound than if you stand on the other side of the refinery and listen to it. And I think it's the same thing with the smelter. If you stand on one side of the smelter, it makes one sound. And if you stand on another side of the smelter, it makes this kind of like popping metallic sound as it's kind of smelting the ores that you're putting into it, which is so cool. I love those little effects that the game has added to make these things feel alive and not so, static, not so bland. I think that's great. Great audio in a game can make the game feel so much more immersive. And we've seen this even in other games published by Coffee Stain. Valheim does audio incredibly well, and Satisfactory does it just amazingly, especially because you're in a 3D game. And so the sound of a 3D space has to adapt to the player. I think that's really cool. Updated the factory building leg texture and mesh. Added specific factory building legs for the space elevator. Sure. Yeah. All stuff that's like, okay. Polished the Dune Desert maze layout in the southwestern corner of the Dune Desert. Very curious about that. Interesting. Polished it. Implemented several new ambient VFX and automated proximity-based systems to spawn them. So this might be related to the world. Like you're going to hear different sounds as you explore the world and enter different biomes, which is pretty cool. Added support for area-specific music with a few new music tracks. I think I might have heard this in my few seconds in the game. And I was listening going, I don't think I've ever heard this song before. And it was specific to the Dune Desert, which is really cool. I love that. That they're still working on some of these, like a musical element isn't necessarily something that has to be focused on in an early access game that already has a soundtrack. But the fact that they're putting time into it, I think is really cool. Tweaked and added some caves in the Dune Desert, which is really exciting for me because that's where our base is based, right? And then polished a large list of environment assets. So there's going to be some polish to some of the environmental textures and stuff like that around the world, which is pretty neat. Added some additional animation and VFX and sound feedback to the lizard doggo. I'm calling it right now. There is undoubtedly some kind of Easter egg or something, some kind of interaction maybe added to the lizard doggo that didn't exist before. Absolutely calling it. So if you find out what that is, let me know down in the comments because I'm very curious. I think we should probably just spend some time around some lizard doggos and find out exactly what has changed. If it's nothing special, I'll be a little bit bummed, but I read that and the way that it's sort of like glossed over a little bit, I'm thinking to myself, There's got to be something there. I think there's something there. Improve the first-person and third-person parachute animations and VFX and sounds. Polish the object scanner mesh. All right. And the chainsaw animations and sounds, which I think they made the change before, and now they're going to make another change to it, which is, fine, good. And then overhauled the visuals and the sounds for the color gun. Looks like they didn't change anything about the color gun mechanics, which is kind of unfortunate because it's a little bit frustrating to use. It's a little bit slow, but I can take it. The visuals and sounds, cool. Tweaked some landing and footstep sounds and the swimming and the water impact sounds, and then some settings changes that they changed it. So the build and dismantle mode contrast options and some slot stuff, which is pretty neat. And then a bunch of bug fixes. So there was a startup and stopping bug sound for the Mark I miner that they changed, and all of this stuff. I don't think we need to get into too many of these. If there's a bug, that you really specifically wanted fixed or patched out of the game, you can go check it out. I think that most of these are just like, kind of little stuff. Train tracks switch positions now update correctly for 3 or more outgoing tracks, which is pretty cool. There were some train connection and like routing issues that I had noticed when I was doing some experimentation, and I'm not sure if those were fixed in the note that they had up above, but they may have been. And then just some other odds and ends bugs changes and stuff in there. I'm always curious about this known issues area because it means that there's something that they know is a problem, and it's most often the stuff that they're going to address relatively soon, or they know like, hey, this is a problem, we're working on it, right? So conveyor belt item looks odd due to the new conveyor subsystem. That's going to be fixed soon. They even say it right there in the patch note. Conveyor lift items don't show up correctly in some situations or can visually disappear in some situations, which, as they're changing that system to be more efficient, makes sense that there are going to be some bugs that come up with around that. First initialization of new conveyor items can affect performance for a few frames. Freight cars have a collision where the container should be, even if there's no container there. So what that means is if you've got a freight car on a train and there's no container, you might have problems jumping over the flatbed on that train because even though the container doesn't exist there, there's a collision element there that's going to prevent you from jumping it. So just be cautious of that. And then the game may crash if it's full screen, loses focus while the world is... I hope that didn't happen in the background as I was recording this video. We're going to find out. So really exciting changes and stuff like that. Let's just take a look at some of this stuff, see what it's like. I can't show you everything because I don't have all the items. So, and my mods are disabled. So stuff like the new tier 8 items, you're not going to be able to see the creation process of those. But what we can see is pretty much everything from tier 7 and before that. And there's a bunch of changes that have come to the game. So let's just take a look really quickly and see what that is. All right, so we're in the experimental branch of the game right now with the update 4 installed. I've spent a little bit of time kind of scoping out some of these new things so I get to show you some of this stuff, which is really cool. If you're continuing one of your saves, I recommend you look in a few different places for what to do and how to start. Obviously, start at the hub and see some of the unlocks there. There are also unlocks in the MAM. I noticed when I was running through this a little bit that this is where you unlock stuff like the power switch and the zip line. And I think this is the Mark III power pole, which I guess never unlocked ever in my save. I mentioned that I had never used geothermal generators. Let me go one step further. I had never unlocked geothermal generators in our playthrough. They're still here just dying to be unlocked. We'll probably do that and play around with those because of the changes that have come to those as well. Other than that, I don't see too many other unlocks that are sitting here waiting to be unlocked. I don't see many more changes to the MAM here, but keep in mind, you're going to have to go hard drive hunting if you haven't done so and gathered all the hard drives in your save to unlock the new alternate recipes that have come to the game. I think there's a bunch of them that they've added. The other place to look is at the Awesome Shop. Here it is. And in the Awesome Shop here. So not too many things were added. No new walls or attachments or foundations or vehicles as so far as I can see. But there's a bunch of the lights here, and this is where you unlock them. So you'll grab the street light and the floodlights and indoor lighting, and then that light control panel that you connect to your lights to be able to do those. All of those is in here. Other than that, I haven't seen or found too many other changes to stuff in the Awesome Shop. But look at those places. That's the MAM, the hub, the awesome shop, and then of course the space elevator. That's where you're going to find guidance for how to take on update 4. I almost said update 8, tier 8 in update 4. So keep an eye on those places. First thing that we should see, let's head over to the hub and see exactly where the placement of some of these items are that we've been told so much about. If we take a look, I skimmed through most of this, and there doesn't seem to be many changes to the earlier tiers. You see some of the same stuff that you've seen before. Coal power hasn't changed, or anything in tier 3 really. Nothing really's changed in tier 4 that I noticed too much, except for power storage, which is located in the Logistics Mark III unlock. So you'll get access to that power storage there. Interesting place for it. I'm trying to think, comparatively why it's here specifically, and I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know. There might be some thoughts on exactly why power storage is located here in tier 4. In tier 5, doesn't seem like there was too much added here, if I remember correctly. No, there was nothing changed there. And the same thing in tier 6. For the most part, tier 6 has gone unchanged as well. It's 7 and 8 where the most changes have come to the game. So if we take a look really quick at bauxite refinement, this is the place where we're going to be unlocking the blender, right? So we've got access to the blender here. If I open up our build menu really quick, do I even have the resources that I need to make this? I don't, because it takes aluminum casing, and I forgot what these are. Radio control units, that's right, which are made from now aluminum casing and the, the crystal oscillators from quartz crystal. So we got a lot of things to refactor, and one of those is this change to our radio control units. Also, just adding the aluminum casing to the line here so that we can use it is quite important. Now, this is that right-click open in the codex ability that we had that they talked about a little bit. So we can see, and this is really useful when a new update comes out especially, we can see what these are made of. So this is made out of an aluminium ingot. And an aluminium ingot is still made out of, if we open up in the codex, the aluminium scrap and the silica. So that's pretty cool, actually. These codex refinements, I was a little bit like, okay, so what? No, it's actually really cool to be able to see how to get to that. And to see all the alternate recipes underneath the standard recipes, be able to right-click on any of those and open in the codex too is really cool. I like it. Unfortunately, if we open water, it does actually show us what water, how you can get water. So that's kind of cool. And the recipes that use it. Pretty neat. Even water as a byproduct of alternate recipes, which I think is really cool. That's pretty sweet. Okay. So that is the blender. Can't show you what that is because I can't build it. I don't have the tools for it. But it exists inside of tier 7 as part of the bauxite refinement process. And bauxite process there. So that's pretty cool. It's the first time that we see that. And we unlock that along with, there's a bunch of stuff that happens in tier 7. The alumina solution and the aluminium ingots and the all-clad aluminium sheets. There's a lot in tier 7. It is a chonky unlock when you're playing the game. So very curious about that. The rest of these, though, I think are the same. There's some good stuff in here. Sulfuric acid and the packaged sulfuric acid, which people had requested be a thing, is finally a thing. We've got the drones and the drone port, which I am probably the most excited about. I'm super psyched for this. Is this in logistics? No. Organization? No. Transportation. There we go. The drone port. Can't show you what it looks like. Are my creative cheats on? They might be. Oh my gosh. I think I might have whiffed it. I might have creative mode on because that definitely didn't require me to place anything down or use any resources. But look at this. This is the control panel for the drones. Oh man, this whole video is going to be completely different. Can I place down the blender too? Real quick, hold on. That is not a blender. Production. Blender, just pop this bad boy down. Oh my good, that's wonderful. That is so cool. Seeing this finally up close and personal, love it. So it's got 2 physical inputs and 2 liquid inputs or piped inputs in it and a bunch of different recipes. Right now, I've got unlocked the battery, which we can finally see now is the sulfuric acid, alumina solution, and all-clad casing. Cool. And the encased uranium cells. which are your uranium and concrete and sulfuric acid. So neat. Cool. That's the blender. And then we've got the drones. Now, can I build a drone? How does this work? Do I place it down? Must snap to a station. Let me get into a position here where we can see it happen. Can I climb up here? Yeah, this is better. Totally didn't plan this, by the way. This is completely off the cuff. And let's put down one of the drones on the drone station there. Wow. Wow. That is so cool. And it has collision, huh? Oh, you know what we're going to do, right? Absolutely. I don't know if I've got the power to support this, and I don't have the batteries to support this either. I think this requires a load of batteries put into it and a power supply to be able to use it. And then the drones will transport resources to another drone port. So it looks like we've got this ability to change which drone ports we connect to. Kind of like you do with a train schedule, almost. You can see the distance that it requires. So this is, what's the distance to the other ports around the world? And you probably can get a sense of like, oh, I guess if we build another one, let's just do it. Let's just do it. This port, once that's built, they might not show up unless they're powered. So this might be, here we go. The other port, and set them up like that. You get some status indicators here too. We're going to do probably a whole video about how to use drone ports effectively and efficiently. So I'm super excited for that. And some really cool stuff in here. One of the things that they've done so well in Satisfactory is pay attention to the user experience. And even when the game came out in early access, it felt like a really, I won't say well-polished game, but a really great early access experience. And when they come up with these updates, it's the same way. So there's a lot of fear of trying out the experimental branch because it might be a little bit rough around the edges, and I'm sure we'll find bugs. But I got to say, when they add in these quality of life things before anyone's ever asked for them, love it. Love it. That's really cool. So drone ports, very interested in. We took a look at the blender. There's also, if we scroll through, look at this. The nuclear power plant is here, even though our nuclear tech hasn't been unlocked. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll take a look at that in a second. But we've got access to lights, which have an arrow coming out of them. Oh, I see. Okay. It's because you're probably looking down here, and the arrow points to where the light actually is. It's got this little bendy arm kind of shape here. So we can put that down. Can we connect this to... Oh! That is a thing of beauty. That is really cool. Wow. That is so neat. I'm digging it. And we've got some ceiling lights that we can place up on the ceiling as well. And this is going to be so much fun to place some of these power connections here. You'll notice we've got the ceiling power connection that's automatically being created here. So we can keep our power lines out of the way. I'm just going to connect this to what I know exists. Wow. Let's kill this. It might need to be closer to the ground to actually work. Or maybe it needs to be just darker. We might have to place this up. Oh, it's certainly bright when you look up at it. When we kill this, yeah, I don't think there was much change. It's hard to tell. When it's closer to the ground, obviously the light diffuses less, and so you're going to be able to see a bigger effect. Also, probably when it's nighttime, right, would be a good idea to showcase this kind of stuff. But we've got the wall-mounted floodlight as well, which is really neat. Let's place that lower. If we can... Oh, is it a double tap placement? You place... Oh my gosh. They were showing off a build that showed somebody had built a baseball stadium in the game, and they were showing this off, and I was thinking, how cool would that be if there were some floodlights? And now there actually are in the game. That would be freaking amazing to see how that creator makes those changes. But look at the light that generates. Ignore the frame drops. I can't tell if that's based on the light or based on how ridiculous our build is at this point, to be honest. But that's really cool. And then we've got a, what do we have? A floodlight tower, which is taller than my base allows. So let's bring this outside real quick. And let's place this down. This one is probably going to be those that we don't see very much of an effect from, but it really looks like a baseball stadium tower. It really does. Like you would see somewhere there. That's really cool. So I can only imagine some of the fun that you can have with this kind of stuff as it comes to more of the playful elements of Satisfactory, like building a stadium or building a competition or like a coliseum for PvP. Really excited about that. Ignore this. It's the ugliest thing in the world. We're getting rid of it. I promise. I promise. When we get our hands into update 4 for real on stream on Twitch. So that's really cool. The floodlight tower, I'm super psyched about that. And I imagine we can probably plug this into something nearby, like this guy right here. Yeah, look at that light and the light that it creates. That's so neat. That is really, really, really neat. So lights are here. That's really cool. If you've got a big base and you're already getting some FPS drops, let me tell you, lights are the worst things you could possibly have been given. And I'm so sorry. I know the appeal of these is going to be quite large, but keep in mind, this is going to have a big impact on your FPS if you just put lights all over the place, especially when you have these see-through windows and transparent or opaque objects. When they interact with lights, that puts a massive strain on your GPU and its ability to just do its job. So keep that in mind as well. They're really cool. You might want to have like a separate creative save that you play with these things if you've got like a gigantic base or a gigantic save already. Yeah. Okay. A few other things. Let's take a look. A few other things here that are located in the hub. We've got tier 8 and the various unlocks. So I mentioned that if you had already unlocked nuclear in tier 7, it's been moved to tier 8 and it will become unlocked or locked. Here it is. So we've got the encased uranium cells and all of those resources and recipes that we would expect for the nuclear process. You get a sense of what that looks like now. I don't know. From here, we can't right click on these things to get a sense of what their recipe is. So we're a little bit stunted there. I wonder, uranium fuel rods, can we just really quick cheese it? I think we can. Oh, beautiful. So the uranium fuel rods are going to be made out of encased industrial beams and encased uranium cells and the electromagnetic control rod. So we had seen this in the nuclear video, and I think this was the same recipe as it was before. So not much has changed there, and it's used as the fuel for the nuclear power plant, which is pretty cool. What we don't necessarily get to see are the recipes for the plutonium production. So this is going to be using that resource well pressurizer and the extractor for that. And this is where you unlock stuff like nitrogen gas and some of these new components like the fused modular frame. I'm sorry, this is advanced aluminium production, my bad. The fused modular frame, which we will probably see as a requirement for something like maybe the hover pack, possibly. And certainly for some of these later tier unlocks. Very curious to see that the Mark III miner is now in tier 8, not in tier 7. So if you've already unlocked it, I think you have access to build it. Kind of cheated the system a little bit there. If you haven't unlocked it, you got to get to tier 8 to be able to do that. Remember, tier 7 and 8 unlocked together. So at least you've got that. But these are requiring you to build the fused modular frames and the supercomputers and steel pipes, which are an earlier tech. So you've got to work your way into tier 8 a little bit and aluminium in order to build that Mark III miner. That's a lot. That's a lot. And then, of course, particle enrichment. So this is going to be the particle accelerator and the plutonium fuel rods. It's also going to be some interesting stuff here. Copper powder. High natural density of copper combined with the granularity of the powder makes this part fit for producing nuclear pasta. Interesting, interesting. They're giving another reason to have a bunch of copper for this build. A pressure conversion cube, and then the nuclear pasta itself. Extremely dense, degenerate matter, so like Twitch chat, formed when extreme pressure forces protons and electrons together into neutrons, theorized to exist naturally within the crust of neutron stars. Crazy. Whoa. Very interesting. So this is our project part number 9 for the space elevator. Now, I can't tell you, because I don't know, if the space elevator we've deconstructed ours actually. If I still have creative mode on, and I'm gonna have to find out how to turn this off because this could become a problem. I know people are gonna go ape about it. Let's jump down here with our space elevator, find out where I can place this, if anywhere. This is like the worst thing to place in a base, so we're just gonna place it off to the side. Really kind of hoping here. I don't know which one of my mods are working. I am definitely taking damage. Definitely taking damage. And I died right before recording this, so I have no jetpack, which is awesome. Just cool, fantastic, awesome. Let's place this space elevator, hopefully where I can. Floor is too steep. Oh, you can only build one. Oh my God, where's my space elevator? Oh no. Did I absolutely did. At the end of one of our streams, I'm going to die here. At the end of one of our streams, I placed the space elevator on the edge of a cliff because I didn't think we would need to use it anymore. And now it is completely unreachable. I completely forgot. So, I think what that means is we are going to reboot this factory in update 4 and have to unlock a bunch of tech in update 8, or sorry, in tier 8 to get some of that stuff. Go on some kind of rescue mission, I suppose, to get our space elevator down from there and see, you know, can we use the part number 9 in anything? Is it usable, or is it just kind of a tease there? I really actually have no idea. Very curious about that. There's probably a lot about this update that we haven't seen yet. I don't know how much they've put in there that wasn't in the patch notes, so very curious about that. But there is a lot to play with and experiment with, and we're going to be doing all of that, not only on Twitch, but on the channel here. So check us out on Twitch. We're streaming every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and pretty much going to be focused on Satisfactory through that, but we explore a bunch of different games as well and find out about new games that are coming out. Over on the Twitch stream, I'm live at twitch.tv/MaxTheCatfish, and come check us out 3 days a week, every week, playing games like Satisfactory, Oxygen Not Included, and more. So check us out there. Otherwise, stay tuned for the YouTube video here coming out that's going to explain in more detail all the things that came out in Update 4, so you can find out and learn some of those tips and tricks that we're going to experiment with and learn about the game here on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, and seriously, let me know what you guys find out about this update down in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you guys soon, either on our live stream over at Twitch or here on YouTube. See you soon.